Perfect. So welcome everyone to our webinar today, the 7 steps to reach the inbox. This is a great piece of content we've created for you in order to show you specifically how to get the best practices to land in the proper inbox. So this is why we're having the webinar today. Again, thank you so much for joining us. I am Fabricio Bernal. I am the product expert at CakeMail, and I have joined this industry about 2 years ago. And honestly, there's a lot to learn. And webinars like the one we are having today are very important, especially to gain more knowledge on this and get better results for your email strategies. So today we'll be specifically talking about the topic of landing on the proper inboxes and the best practices to reach the inbox. So joining me today is Kevin Huxham. He's the director of deliverability. So please allow me to introduce Kevin Huxham. He will be presenting today's webinar. And also, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to send them my way via the chat, and we'll be able to answer them at the end in a 15 minutes Q&A session. So without further ado, please, Kevin, go ahead and present the topic today.
Thank you, Fabricio. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Yeah, Director of Deliverability. I've been with CakeMail for about 14 years now. It's a pleasure to work with such a close group of people. It's like a family. It's a great place to work. Basically, my role at CakeMail is to make sure that the emails hit the inbox. It sounds a lot easier than it is. It's a complicated industry. I really don't have any formal training with regard to schooling for deliverability. It's something that's mainly learned hands-on, as Fabricio will attest. He's been with us CakeMail for 3 years now. He's learned a lot in that 3 years with regard to not only our product, but obviously helping our clients reach the inbox as well. So this is a webinar that we did last November. If you're no stranger to email marketing, it's a very busy time of year. There's Black Friday and Cyber Monday, along with the holiday season. Whatever holidays you celebrate, I mean, the emails tend to ramp up in volume. So it's very timely to offer this advice to our clients. Whether you're a client to CakeMail or not, it doesn't matter. These rules, they will benefit everyone. So if you're thinking of using an email service provider like CakeMail, hopefully the next hour or so we can spend together, we can convince you to go in that direction if you haven't not already done so. So let's talk about that. We'll go on right through to our next slide. Thanks, Fab. As I mentioned, it's kind of a complicated process to hit the inbox. We've kind of boiled it down to seven steps. It's as few steps as possible that we can think of to have a successful email delivery. Obviously, number one, this big purple number one there is the foundation of your entire program, assembling the right list. You need to make sure that the people on your list, have given you proper consent and they're expecting to receive your emails. I'll just go through these quickly. We'll dive into each one of these 7 steps a little more detailed in a few minutes. Creating great content, obviously, that's important. You need to be able to send good content and over time, content changes. It's important that it's engaging and people are acting on whatever you're trying to sell them or whatever information you're providing them. You need to transmit your message cleanly. That's step 3. Basically, a lot of that has to do with the email service provider that you choose, CakeMail being one of them, obviously. You need to be able to process bounces and unsubscribes and deal with complaints and maintain a clean list. You also need to react on the receivers. So if you're sending to Hotmail or Yahoo or AOL or Gmail, depending on how cleanly your list is, you may be generating some blocks there. So it's important that you listen to their feedback and act accordingly. Number 4, dealing with recipient issues. I touched on that a few seconds ago with regard to bounces and unsubscribes. I mean, these are all common things when it comes to email marketing. It's very important that these people are removed in a timely manner. Engagement, it's kind of been around for a few years. If people aren't opening and clicking your emails, there's probably a reason. Either the content you're sending them just isn't of interest anymore, or maybe they purchased whatever you're trying to sell already. It's important that you react to that accordingly, and it should it should feed into your list and track the results of what works, step 5 here, and what doesn't work. Obviously learning from your mistakes is a big part of email marketing. People make mistakes. It's common. And the content that you send, I mean, some might generate more interaction than others. So you need to track the results, see what works, even the time of day that you send. Know your audience. You know your users the best. It's important that you track what you are doing that is working and what you're doing that's not working, so you can fine tune not only the content for step 7, but the lists as well. Just have a good idea of your marketing campaign going forward. Have goals. What should your target open rate be? What are you trying to click them through? What does it match through to your website? So yeah, let's go through to the next slide. We'll dig into these one by one a little more intensely here. So like I mentioned, your foundation of your whole email marketing efforts is your list. You need to make sure that you have consent to send your list. You can't purchase lists anymore. Those days are gone. You'll stand out like a sore thumb if you are just tanks one time. Purchase lists are fraught with spam traps. You don't have any relationship with the people you're sending to. So we're going to just start here on the left and then go over to the bad practices on the right. It's pretty self-explanatory. This slide there's good marketing practices on the left and there's bad marketing practices on the right. Sorry. Double opt-in is probably the most common, most beneficial method of building your list. Basically, what that does is someone will either make a purchase or fill out a form, and they'll receive what's called an opt-in email. So in that opt-in email, there's an actual link in there that they have to physically click. So not only does the address that you're sending to exist, because you've sent that confirmation email. If the confirmation email bounces, then obviously you know that it was either typed in wrong or the person doesn't own the address, or and if they physically click that link in the confirmation email, you know that it's a real person and they have access to that address. I mean, that's there's no other method on this slide that has that process in place. So as you're building your list, as you're sending out these confirmation emails, you're cleaning the list at the same time because you're removing those bounces. If people sign up to a form and they don't have access to that address, then that person's not going to recognize your confirmation email. They know they didn't request it, so they're not going to click that link. So, and the last part of double opt-in, which is probably the most important, is when that person clicks that link, providers like CakeMail will record certain data from that person. So obviously you have your email address, you have the date and time that they signed up. You also have things like their browser information, their IP address, their location. All this can be used to prove consent for that person, which, if the authorities come knocking, it's important that you have that for your list. The more you have, the better, and the onus is on you to prove that information. One of our slides coming up will also talk about all the regulations surrounding consent, so it's important. Moving on, notified opt-in, pretty much the same as double opt-in, but there's no link to click. So they do fill up the form, they do receive that confirmation email, but it's just letting them know that hello, thank you for joining our list. You're now active on the list. There's no second step. There's no affirmation from the recipient to confirm. There's no double opt-in. It's a notified opt-in. You do own the relationship with that person, which is good. They did ask for you to contact them, which is good. But again, there's no you are processing those bounces as well, but there's no confirmation link within that notified opt-in email. Single opt-in is basically the same. Obviously someone has filled out a form, but there's no confirmation email sent. So you're not removing bounces along the way. There's no confirmation link that they physically have to click. So, I mean, the further we go to the right here, the less strict it is, obviously, the less stringent it is on your opt-in. Opt-out, this is a very popular method of building your list. Usually it's done through a purchase. So, I mean, with regard to anti-spam laws, if someone makes a purchase from you, you do have a business relationship there, which is good. You do have permission to send to that person, but they didn't necessarily know that they're going to be added to your list during the purchase process. They might not be expecting your email as well. It tends to have a higher complaint rate, a higher unsubscribe rate, and those are two things you want to stay away from with regard to your reputation. We'll talk about that as well. Your online reputation and your email reputation, your domain's reputation. All these things are a factor when it comes to you hitting the inbox. So it's very important that you stay away from those. Affiliate lists, rented lists, purchase lists. These are all lists that you have no relationship with. You've either purchased them online. Affiliate lists are a little different. Sometimes if you go to, sign up a form, you're added to multiple different lists. It could be under the same umbrella company, but, you're not necessarily, interested in receiving marketing messages from all of their different affiliates. There's a few legal ramifications when it comes to that. It's important that you mention that you're going to be added to these affiliate lists. Rented lists, again, we're going more to the right here. Marketing bad practices. Rented lists, you don't know necessarily the identity of the people that you're sending to. It might be just for a one-time send. Usually, it's the list owner that sends the email on your behalf. These aren't good marketing practices for a reason. Like I said before, the complaints tend to be high, and it's your relationship that's on the line here. So if you expect to hit the inbox on a regular basis, you want to stay more to the left side here if you can. Purchase lists, again, this is a big no-no. You're probably very likely to get blacklisted if you send to a purchase list. You do grow your list, very quickly over time, but obviously that's for the nefarious reasons, and it is going to affect the inbox delivery for the people that did give you permission, the people that do want to receive your email. So going the way of a purchase list is not a good marketing practice. It's illegal in a lot of countries. Harvested addresses are addresses that are actually scraped off the internet. So there's bots out there that will look at all the different websites in the internet and look for anything that has an @ sign and will automatically scrape that address off public list. So again, everything in red here, you want to stay away from. Try and stay as far left as you can. Like I mentioned, rented, purchased, harvested lists are riddled with spam traps. I'll just do a quick explanation of spam traps. Spam traps are email addresses that exist for the sole reason of catching people sending spam. So sending marketing messages that were never wanted. That's pretty much the definition of spam, is an unwanted email. So, if you're trying to sell something and no one asked to receive it, I mean, chances are they're either going to delete your message or complain or unsubscribe or report you. I mean, all of those 4 possibilities are not a good thing when it comes to your online reputation. You want to stay away from that as much as possible. When you're blacklisted, it depends on where you're blacklisted. You can see with, anywhere from 30 to 50 to 60% of a bounce rate. So obviously, that's very serious. These are people that do want to receive your messages and they're being bounced because you sent to one spam trap. So it's important that you stay on the good side of that. Obviously, bad practices, poor list building, list hygiene. List hygiene is important. I'll talk about that in the next slide as well. But as you send your list over time, you will have bounces. I mean, this is all normal. You'll have people that unsubscribe. You have people that complain, and all of those should be removed from your list. I mean, they're giving you feedback saying they don't want to receive your emails. So why keep them there? So it's important that you choose an ESP like Cake Mail that does all that in the background, behind the scenes. Keeping your list clean, sending on a regular basis are necessary in order to have a good list hygiene. Repeat offenders, when you are blacklisted once, it all depends how to react to it. But if you ignore your blacklistings, they're only going to get worse. You're only going to see more blocks. Repeat offenders, if you send to a spam trap once, it's not necessarily the end of the world, but if you keep hammering away at that spam trap all the time, it's going to turn really bad. It's going to be, it might not be recoverable, and it's, like I said, it's going to harm your reputation, your delivery, and people who don't want to receive your emails are no longer going to be seeing it in their inbox. So it's important to deal with those blacklistings.
Let's say, Kev, that
yeah.
I've sent out a campaign and I've ignored some of those best practices, and I have been blacklisted. So in that case, what is the very first thing that I should do to properly address the issue?
Great question. Basically, well, it's important to know where you're blacklisted. I mean, if you Google RBL lookups or blacklist lookups on, you can see there's different lookups out there. The first thing to do is to find out where you're blacklisted and contact them. Obviously, it's a good idea to let them know that you're aware of the listing. I mean, it shows you're a responsible email marketer, a responsible sender. And then, there's usually a way to open a support ticket with them. Don't panic, don't get angry, maybe start with an apology. I mean, they're giving you free feedback here. There's a reason you're blacklisted. It's not their fault. You can't shoot the messenger. I mean, their job is to help control spam, right? So if you're being reported as a spammer, there's obviously a good reason for that. So it might, whether you know it or not, it's affecting your inbox rate. So it's important that you contact them, let them know about the blacklisting, and do the necessary steps to clean your list of those spam traps. So you can send a reconfirmation email, and the reconfirmation email will be sent to the spam traps. Spam traps don't click links, so they won't be re-added to your list as active. So it's a very good way of cleaning your list. And also, if you remove people that don't open and click, again, spam traps, they may open, but very rarely will click any of the links in your email. So that's another good way to remove these spam traps from your list. Usually, they're pretty open as long as you contact them. And the fact that you're responsible and you're letting them know that the blacklisting is there, and you're going to do whatever it takes to fix the problem. That's all they're really after. It's my recommendations for blacklistings. And contact our support team. I've mentioned that before. Fabricio and I are here. Don't necessarily try to do this all on your own. It's important to get advice where it's needed. We can all very often facilitate that process. We have connections within the industry. Another good reason why you should be going with an email service provider like CakeMail. I mean, we have been doing this for a while. So, obviously we know a lot of different people in the industry. We know what to say and when to say it.
Yeah, that's true. We've dealt with such cases before, and it's always important to, reach out to us if this were ever to happen. If this happens to you, we will be more than happy to assist with this procedure. So let's move on.
Yeah, we just talked about this, how not to get blacklisted. So, well, we talked about if you are blacklisted, but how to prevent being blacklisted using confirmed opt-in. Like I said, spam traps don't click links, and you'll be removing bounces along the way. So the chances of you adding a spam trap are, almost nothing when it comes to confirmed opt-in. Number two, send your list on a regular basis. So addresses change, people move, they move on, they lose their jobs, people, they stop checking their email, people die. I mean, everything happens with, it's like a phone number. They don't stay the same forever. So over time, as addresses expire, they will bounce. So if you're not sending on a regular basis, you don't have the opportunity to remove these bounces. So it is possible for an address that did exist, they may or may have signed up to your list willingly, to be turned into a spam trap. I mean, companies go under, and these blacklists will acquire these domains. So, I mean, they'll sit on them for a while. If they do receive anything, usually within a year or two, anything after that, they really shouldn't be on your list anymore, because they're not engaged. So, I mean, it's important that not only do you build your list with confirmed opt-in from the start, a good foundation, but it's also important that you send on a regular basis to keep your list clean. So as I said, you're removing bounces along the way. People are unsubscribing, and people are complaining as well, which we will remove from your active list. So by sending on a regular basis, your list hygiene will be good. It'll stay clean. Step 2, creating great content. Yeah, the golden rule for this is send content people want to receive. I've said this many times. Your engagement is key. It's the key to your success. So if people aren't opening and clicking your emails, there's a reason for that. So, you know, either make some changes to your content, try and win them back. Maybe take those people who don't open and click, segment them out of your active list and try and win them back with some kind of incentive. You know, send a dedicated email campaign just to those people. But, you know, if they're not opening or clicking, they're just considered dead weight, and you know, they should really be cut from your list, especially over time. I mean, the more you send, the more accurate your engagement will be. So, you know, it's important that you stay on top of that, and personalized content as well. You know, statistically, that has been shown to generate the best results. Segmenting your audience as well. You can, you know, segment your list. You may have a list of 10,000 emails, maybe 5,000 are French speaking people and 5,000 are English speaking. You can send a different email to each one of those target audiences. Have a clear call to action with regard to the actual content itself, and it should end in a click. So you want people to not only open your email, but click. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. You want people to click through to your website. So have a clear call to action, have, you know, very visible clicks or buttons within your actual email to get them through to your end goal, which is your website, to make a purchase or whatever you're marketing. Encourage people to display images or add your from email to their contact list or their safe sender list. That will also tell the ISP or you're receiving all the receivers that you're sending to that you know, these emails are wanted. It's important that they do that. You know, that obviously will help improve your reputation. You know, it's a form of engagement as well that the ISPs are looking at. So you know, and obviously from then on, your emails the images will be displayed. They won't be empty boxes. And, you know, chances are, if you're on their safe sender list, obviously, you can hit the inbox. So those are good tips for content. Careful of spammy words. You can use them sparingly. You know, free, save big, credit, all these words they do get flagged. Content isn't as much the main factor to going to the junk box or being blocked as it used to be. If the engagement is there, you know, you can get away with more spammy words, spammy content than others. You want to have a clear and concise subject line. Obviously, the more clear your subject line, the better. Use bait. Bait is a term in the industry where you whet someone's appetite to open your email, and then you whet someone's appetite to click through to your website. It's a very effective way of increasing your engagement and ultimately your return on investment. Obviously, you want people to click through to your website, so you know, whetting their appetite so they can go and read what's next, and read up more on what you're talking about is a very good way to do that. You don't want to overdo it on images. You want to have a good balance of images and text. You know, it's kind of the 70, 30, 60, 40 kind of rule. You want, you know, 70% text or 60% text. You know, and the rest images. I've seen it very often where the entire campaign for Bestial, you probably agree, we've seen this a few times, where it's just one single image, which, you know, if the images aren't displayed by default, then it's going to be an empty box. And there's alt text that you can enter for each image. So if there's no alt text for your images, then it's going to be a really empty box. It's not going to look very professional. So have a good balance of images and text. Spam Assassin is a spam filter that's out there. It's a popular one. It's been around for years and years. They they look at this as well. They kind of have the 60-40 rule. So if your entire messages is images, or there's more images than text, they'll look at it less favorably. Avoid using large fonts, bolds, all caps. I mean, you don't want to start yelling at people. It's, again, if the engagement is there, you can get away with a few of these things, but it doesn't look very professional. You would kind of reserve that to a personal message to a friend. But when it comes to sending a professional email marketing campaign, you want to look professional. You're reflecting your brand, so it's important that you stay away from spammy words and all caps, especially. No one likes to be yelled at. No reply. Yeah, that does send a message, all right. It's that we don't want to hear from you. You actually want people to reply to your marketing messages. You want that interaction. It's a form of engagement. They might have questions. No replies do have a purpose, for password resets, for example, or their billing invoice emails, triggered messages. But, when it comes to email marketing, you want to have a proper from address and from name. It should be the same domain that you have for your website. It should be the same domain that they went to purchase or went to sign up. So reflect your brand and reinforce it. Like I said, it should be consistent across the entire email and your from name as well. It just looks more professional.
Yeah, no, actually, I've seen a lot of this happen with some clients where they use a combination of spammy words or large fonts, both all caps and all that. And usually what happens is that they have a lot of deliverability issues caused by this. So yeah, we also recommend taking a look at these tips, making sure you implement them on your strategies. And in regards to this, actually, Kev, I wanted to ask you something. What do you think? How do you think the personalization of a subject line will result on the deliverability, like adding their name, the client's name? How do you think that would change the deliverability?
Yeah, well, I mean, all of that is a good idea. Probably my best advice for that is to test it, because it can go wrong and have the opposite effect that you're trying to accomplish. If it says dear Kevin, or if it says dear null, or the name is wrong, that will just blow up in your face. You want to test. If you are using personalization, it's a very good way to send and personalized content. It does have a statistically a higher open rate, so it is the right direction to go in. But you need to do things properly. You need to test. So if you don't have those fields in your list, for everyone, it's going to cause some problems. So whatever personalization that you do go with, just make sure that it works. It's my advice.
Perfect. Thank you.
Step 3, transmit the message cleanly. So this comes down to choosing the right ESP, email service provider. Like I mentioned, we receive bounces and we receive unsubscribes. We also receive feedback when we're sending. So when you're sending millions of emails, you need to react on and respect delivery rates. Not all receivers can receive emails at the same speed. Gmail is used to receiving billions of emails a day, but some of the smaller domains, some of the small companies, SMBs, whoever they're using as their hosting provider, might not be able to receive a million emails a day. So if they are saying back off, we're receiving too much mail, it's important that you respect that. This is free feedback that they're sending you. Don't keep hammering away at their servers trying to send the same emails over and over again. Not all ISPs are the same, so respect their volumes and limits. Look at the bounces that they're coming back. So if for whatever reason, say your engagement is low, they're going to put up a temporary block, perhaps, or maybe you're blacklisted. So if 50 or 60% of your list is bouncing, you need to take a look at that and find out why, make adjustments. Like I said, respect their delivery rates. Not all ISPs can receive email at the same time, so you'll get throttled. And if you ignore that, you'll get blocks and or junking. So this is all feedback that you need to look at. Authentication, it's probably a whole webinar in itself there, authenticating your domain. There's a few different methods of authentication that have been around for a few years. SPF, DKIM, DMARC. BIMI is new on the in the industry, but it's rising. Just go through these quickly. Basically, SPF, it's been around since about 2000, and it basically publishes a list of IP addresses that are allowed to send on your domain's behalf. It does have its limitations, where DKIM is a bit more sophisticated. It actually encrypts the message in transit. So the sender, i.e. CakeMail, will send a digital key along with the message. And then when the receiver sees that key, it will go and do a DNS lookup on the from domain, so the client's domain, and will look for what are called domain keys. And if the private key that's sent with the message and the key that's in the public DNS of the from domain, if those two align, then the DKIM will pass, and you're more often to reach the inbox with that. It also encrypts the message in transit just to make sure that it hasn't been altered with. So it's a very robust way of authentication. DMARC will look at both SPF and DKIM. If both SPF and DKIM pass and they align on the same domain, then DMARC will pass. DMARC is unique in that you, the sender, actually control what happens to messages that fail SPF and DKIM. And you'll also get a report back. So DMARC stands for Domain Message Authentication, Reporting, and Conformance. The last two things there are key to that. So if someone's spoofing your domain, they're sending from an IP that's not in your SPF, or the DKIM signature is broken. They're trying to spoof your domain. They're trying to send from your domain's behalf, and they don't have permission. You'll get a report back from the receivers with your DMARC signature. And in the policy of your DMARC, you can tell it to go to the junk box, or you can tell it to completely block it altogether. So it's a very good way to authenticate your message. It's a very good way to see and prove that both your SPF and DKIM are aligned, and you'll get feedback back from the inbox service providers out there that that will show you if there's any IP addresses, or if there are people out there who are trying to spoof your domain that SPF and DKIM is failing. So it's a very good way to handle that, and you can go after them. So all three of those are recommended, and they're all three methods of authentication that CakeMail can help you with. We'll be happy to do that. Obviously, if you're sending from a Gmail address, you don't have access to the DNS for gmail.com, obviously, for good reasons. So it's a good idea to get your own domain. We talked about that last month in a previous webinar with regard to New Year's resolutions around email delivery. If you haven't seen that, check that out already. It was a very good webinar. It does mention DMARC, DKIM as well. So important. It's important to have your domain authenticated. So if you own your own domain, you can set that up very easily. We'll be happy to assist you with that. It gets a bit complicated, but there's tools out there that can help you do that, and our support team is here as well. Don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions. Slide 4, dealing with recipient issues. Yeah, I've mentioned this a few times, unsubscribe, bounces, spams. Spam is a little different in that these are feedback loops. FBL stands for feedback loops, and it's something the sender has to set up themselves. So this is something that I do whenever a new FBL comes out. There's also a universal feedback loop out there, so you can sign up to multiple different FBLs at the same time with one application, which is great. It makes my job a lot easier. But basically what that does is anytime someone clicks the spam button at the top of Hotmail or Yahoo or whatever they're using, that will trigger a message back to us, the sender. And we will actually be able to identify who clicked spam and remove them from your list. So it's just yet another method of list hygiene. You don't want people complaining to stay on your list, because it's going to affect your reputation and your delivery at the same time. With regard to unsubscribes, you always want someone to unsubscribe rather than complain. It's important that you include an unsubscribe in the content of your messages. Maybe have it a little more obvious. Don't hide it at the bottom in small in small font, hidden away. Maybe put it at the top in your header. Like I said, you always want someone to unsubscribe rather than complain, because one affects your reputation a lot more than the other. So spam complaints, and it doesn't take many. I'm talking, one complaint in 400 people. I know that's 0.25%. That's enough for ISPs to take notice and start sending your mail to the junk box. Spam complaints are the #1 reason for your email hitting the junk box. So if you do have that problem, you need to take a look at that. Contact us so we can help you. There's lots of different ways we can help people who are hitting the junk box. Never used a purchased or harvested or scraped list. I mean, I talked about that in the first slide. They're full of spam traps. You're going to generate a ton of complaints and unsubscribes, and the ISPs are watching. So it's important that you stay away from those practices. You want to build a direct relationship with every address on your list. Like Fabricio mentioned, personalization is a very good way to increase your inbox rate, increase your open rate, your engagement. So yeah, it's very important that you know every address on your list, and confirm new signups. Like I said, double opt-in. Not only does that remove bounces as you go instead of all at once on your first mailing, but it's confirming that the person who signed up is owns that address that signed up, and they want to receive your emails. They have to physically click that link. It's one extra step for them. And I sign up for lists all the time, and it's really not a big deal for me to. I mean, usually when you sign up to that form, you'll get a little notice saying, "Please check your inbox. We've sent you a confirmation email." I mean, it's nothing new. It's just a confirmation email. It's double opt-in. Has been around for almost 20 years at least, almost as long as email. I mean, it's a very good way to keep your list clean and build that good foundation. Don't auto signups. Put yourself in their shoes. I put those cute little Converse there just to remind me to mention that. You want to put yourself in your shoes, and if you're buying something, you don't necessarily want to receive marketing messages from that company. I like to use the mattress example. Large ticket items like that, cars, televisions, you don't buy them on a regular basis. So just because you bought a mattress doesn't mean you want to keep receiving marketing messages. And it's kind of a generalization, but I think the point is there. It's important that the people are expecting to receive your emails. So with an auto sign up, that isn't always the case. So you need to be aware of that. Put yourself in their shoes. Be empathetic. 5, track the results. Like I said, learn from your mistakes with regard to content. Look at what your open rate and click rate. This is something you should be monitoring over time. If there's a spike, obviously you did something good. If it goes down, and that's the opposite. Don't repeat mistakes. This is feedback that you should be looking at to further your marketing efforts. Segment your list. Target. Send your email to a target audience. Like I mentioned before, the English and French. You can also grab people's postal code on sign up and send them a targeted messages for their neighborhood. Maybe there's a restaurant that has, a promotion that's going on, or whatever it is. Personalization is key. But like I said, Fabrizio's question before, test before sending. You want to make sure that personalization is there for everyone. You want to make sure that it's correct, and it doesn't say, if it's empty, it's going to say dear comma or dear null. It doesn't look very good. It has the opposite effect. And you want to make sure how your email renders. So what does it look like on a desktop computer? What does it look on a mobile device? Mobile is huge now. We're looking at 50 to 60% of people, at least for the first time anyway, will open your emails on their mobile device. So you want to know what your content looks like. It's important to track those results and learn from them. It's good feedback you're getting, not only from the ISP, but from your recipients as well. Slide 6, manage list hygiene. Yeah, like I mentioned, going with email service providers is a great way to do this. So like I said, removing bounces, people who click on the unsubscribe link, are people who complain. We do all that for you in the background. So your list, every time you send to it, is constantly, we're constantly removing bounces. We're removing people who unsubscribe and people who complain as well. If you're sending from a Gmail account or something, I mean, you're not getting that information necessarily. You'll only remove people who maybe reply and say they want to be removed from your list or complain that way. So, I mean, not everyone replies saying they want to unsubscribe, and they certainly don't reply if they're going to register a complaint. So, having these methods of list hygiene in place by choosing the right ESP is very important. And you want to keep your most engaged list as possible. So people who aren't opening and clicking, you know, they're kind of dead weight. Like I said before, you want to remove those people on an ongoing basis. This isn't something you do once a year. You know, it depends how often you send, but you know, you want to people who aren't opening, clicking, like they're harming your delivery for the people that do want to receive your emails. So you want to make sure that they get removed on an ongoing basis. It's your job as a responsible marketer to do that. Maintain an active list is paramount. Make sure it's engaged. ISPs are looking at that to judge whether to put your inbox, so your email in the inbox or not. So make sure it's engaged. Changing providers, you know, this happens from time to time. We'll get a client from another competitor, and you know, they'll upload their entire list. This will include unsubscribes and complaints. You want to make sure that doesn't happen. So if you're changing providers, only export and your most active contacts. It's important that you don't, I mean, yeah, your reputation will follow you, right? So, you know, I get often, you know, people complaining, oh, your delivery is not as good as where we were before. Well, what did we do? You know, did you send to an older list that you haven't used in a while? Did you send to people who previously complained? I mean, never transfer a dirty list. That's it's going to follow you. It's going to harm your reputation right away. I mean, it's an easy mistake, so don't make it. Fine-tune content, yeah. Building your list is key, obviously. You need to look at engagement and open rates, but you should track your content as well. There are different ways to do that. You know, campaigns that have a higher open or click-through rate than others, that's giving you some feedback on what works and what doesn't work. It should lead to further improvements down the road for your marketing campaigns. Maybe even keep track of the time. You know, a lot of people don't do this. They figure, oh, I'll just send whenever I'm finished creating my content, I'm just going to blast it to everyone. Well, maybe that isn't the best idea. Maybe sending, you know, around that time where people are sitting at their desk or they're logging into their computers at work, maybe around 9 o'clock in the morning, depending on the time zone of the person. I mean, all these factors come into play. So, but keep track of that. I mean, if your open rate at 9 a.m. is better than 7 p.m. when they're cooking dinner, then, you know, obviously maybe you should think about sending in the morning more often. Or, you know, if you're sending to people who work night shift or students, people get home, you know, at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe that's the best time to send. It all depends what you're promoting. So use clickbait and hook subject lines. I mentioned that before. It will entice them to open your email and then entice them to click through to your website, which is what you want in the end. Content also, one of the great features that CakeMill has is A/B split testing. So basically what that is you'll construct 2 different emails. You'll send 10% of your list one email, 10% of your list another email, and then this magic in the background, it will automatically see which performed better and then send that remaining 80% the content that performed better. So that's an excellent way to improve your results over time. 50-50, it's very similar to A/B split testing, but basically you're sending 50% of your list one email, 50% of your list, the other 50% another email, and then you can track your performance over time. So that allows you to, you know, maybe only send 1 email a month. So by using 50-50 split, you're essentially sending 2 different emails a month. So you can, you know, further track your performance over time. Dynamic content, something which is kind of new to CakeMill, to email in general. Basically, you can segment, you can target different aspects of the email itself, not just the exact, a completely different email, but just certain blocks within the email can be tailored to each specific recipient. So if they're male or female, or if they're English or French, or, depending on where they live, their language, the actual, the block in the email can change, which is something that's really cool. Again, all of this is to help increase your inbox rate. Legal requirements now, getting through your requirements legally, the nitty gritty here. CakeMail is in Canada, so we need to abide by the Canadian anti-spam legislation, which came out in around 2014. It's been almost 10 years now. Wow. It has requirements around consent. So with Castle, there's express and there's implied consent. Express will be that double opt-in. They physically asked to receive emails from you. You have actual proof with their IP address and their date and everything. Where implied consent, that's either through a purchase, maybe they downloaded a white paper. Express consent never expires. You have it until they unsubscribe, whereas implied consent generally has a 2-year shelf life. So if you have an implied consent with someone and you haven't emailed them in 2 years, you're legally not allowed to have that person on your list anymore. As I mentioned before, the onus is on you to prove consent. So, if you don't have that data, if you don't have proof that you are allowed to send to these people, you can run into some trouble with regard to Castle. So it's important that you keep that for everyone on your list, not just a portion of it. Unsubscribe requirements as well with regard to Castle. There's a few regulations regarding this. The link, when they click that unsubscribe link, the address must be removed within 10 business days. If not, you can be reported to the CRTC, the Fight Spam regulations. The link must work for a minimum of 60 days. They shouldn't have to pay to unsubscribe. There should be no login. Removal should be as easy as it was to sign up. So that's kind of the general rule of thumb in the industry. You want, like I said before, you want people to unsubscribe and not complain, because complaints really affect your delivery. Postal address is probably it's one of the last requirements with regard to Castle. You need to have a physical mailing address at the bottom of your emails. It doesn't have to be at the bottom. It can be anywhere in the content, really. It can be a postal address as well, a PO box. Or it can be a link to your website that does include that information, but it needs to be there. They need to have an alternative way of contacting you if they need to. So it's important. Those are the 3 main regulations for Castle. There's a few different rules out there. If you click on the next slide, with regard to sending to the States, with regard to CAN-SPAM is in the States, Castle is in Canada, and the GDPR is in the European Union. So they're both, Castle and GDPR are quite similar. CAN-SPAM's a little less strict. With regard to CAN-SPAM, it doesn't allow people to use false or misleading header information. So, you need to say, show who you say you are. Make sure you're not, trying to spoof someone or using illegal information or domains you don't own. Anything that's misleading to the recipient is generally frowned upon. Don't use deceptive subject lines. It's important that it's very clear, like I said before. You shouldn't be using trickery, to get these people to open your email. It should be very clear. They should be able to tell right away from your subject line and from your who the email is from, how they signed up, what it's about. So it's important that you do that on an ongoing basis. Yeah, this was a slide. The picture in the bottom right there is supposed to reflect Black Friday. So this was our first time we did this webinar was in November. So as I mentioned, it's a big draw. A lot of people will send more email during this time. There's more promotions, but you don't want to don't turn a blind eye when it comes to your reputation, to your practices. So everything you've done these 11 months previously, the good practices you have in place for your inbox rate, you want to keep that up. I mean, you don't want to defer from that just because it's the holiday season. And if you've hired a new person, maybe you're not in charge of sending your marketing messages anymore. You want to make sure that they are trained properly. They don't make, some silly mistake that's really going to hurt you, like sending to an older list that you haven't sent to in a while, or, sending to people who've unsubscribed. I've seen everything. So, if you're not the one in charge, don't let others damage your delivery. It's important. It's something that takes a long time for you to grow. So don't let one person ruin it for you with one email. Avoided purchase list. I think I've said that 10 times. Reactivating inactive users. You don't want to do this. Previous bounced emails, during the holiday time. I mean, these are good rules of thumb every time, all time of year. But, if you haven't used your list in a few months, maybe send that person a re-engagement message. Start a few months before the holiday season. Try and win them back to entice them, encourage them to engage with your marketing, rather than just blasting out these promotions during the busy time. And cadence is also important. If these people on your list are expecting to receive emails once a week, you don't want to send once a day, because they're not expecting to receive that much email from you. So it could really harm your reputation. You have a higher likelihood of them either unsubscribing or complaining, which you don't want to affect your reputation. Use double opt-in. Don't change your practices. If you have that in place already, that's great. Don't use auto signups. I mean, they are legitimate. They are legal. You are allowed to send marketing messages to your users, to the people who purchased from you, but they're not necessarily want to receive further marketing messages from you. So if people aren't engaged, like I said, engagement is key to your success. So don't auto sign up. Put yourself in their shoes. Just because they purchased something from you doesn't necessarily mean that they want to receive email. It's, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Warren Buffett knows a lot about money, also knows a lot about reputation. It takes years to build a reputation and only 5 minutes to ruin it. Thanks, Warren. If you think about that, you'll do things differently. Great advice. Questions? Anyone out there?
Thank you, Kev. That was some great content. Honestly, I followed these steps in my campaigns, and I find that they're very effective, which is the reason why we've already done this webinar, and we are repeating it. It's because it's such an important subject nowadays to follow all these procedures. So yeah, I'm very happy to now take all of your questions, since we've reached we're pretty close to the end of the webinar. And
yeah, I talked a bit longer than I anticipated. So if we don't get to your questions, I apologize. But feel free to email them to us, kevin@cakemail.com, or Fabricio F. Bernal at cakemail.com, or even support@cakemail.com. That's probably easier to remember.
Yes, absolutely. And also, we'll send you a PDF file with all this great information, so you can keep it for your reference. It's really great content, and I'm sure it's going to be very helpful for your future strategies. So let's say the first question we have here. One of the people who joined has asked, what if my list, my contact list is pretty old? How should I handle it?
Well, it depends how old, and it depends how you acquired the addresses on your list. Like I mentioned before, if it's implied opt-in, so they've purchased something from you, you have 2 years from the date of purchase to contact that person. If they, if that time has expired, you're legally not allowed to contact them via email. So it's important you know that. If you don't have that information, I mean, the sooner you can start acquiring it, the better. With regard, as I mentioned, there's implied and express. So express, you can email those people if it was double opt-in. Another great incentive to use double opt-in. It doesn't expire unless they unsubscribe. But obviously, the older your list, the more bounces you're going to generate, the more unsubscribes, the more complaints. The address may or may not exist anymore. So you need to be careful. If you do have a large or an active list, maybe put those addresses, insert them in slowly over time, or send them a re-engagement campaign to try and win them back, to try and re-engage those people and put them back into your active list. So, but I mean, need to be careful. If you have any questions, or if you're unsure about that, just contact our support team. We can help you out with that. No problem.
Great. On a related note, what if I don't even have a domain, like my own domain? I'm using a Gmail address to send out mass campaigns.
Yeah, well, like I mentioned that, touched on that briefly. I mean, it's nothing wrong with sending marketing messages from a gmail.com address. I mean, it tends to be small, medium businesses, sending to a few hundred contacts. When, if you do have a website, I mean, you already have a domain, so why not use it? I mean, it looks more professional. It also allows you to authenticate your messages. And one of the great things about CakeMail is you can brand the entire email with your domain. So all of the tracking links, the unsubscribe link at the bottom, the from email address, the DKIM signature, the DMARC, if you're using it, it'll all align on your domain, which looks very professional. It makes the receiver ISP's job a lot easier in filtering spam or messages that pretend that they're coming from you. So, I mean, all those are good things. If you're thinking about going in that direction, your list is growing. They're not that expensive. Getting your own domain will always, you'll always see better results than sending from gmail.com. There's a few ISPs out there that don't allow you to use their domain. So Yahoo, for example, if you send from yahoo.com and it doesn't come from their network, it's going to get blocked. So, you could see a really high bounce rate there. So it's a good idea to go with your own domain. If you're thinking about doing that, now is a good time. It's more professional, makes you look better. Brand recognition.
Exactly. Nowadays, it's very important to get properly recognized when setting out campaigns, especially in email marketing. So yeah, those are some great tips for you. And for the last question, Kev, wanted to ask, what role does CakeMail have in regards to email deliverability and optimizing it?
Yeah, well, I've touched on a few things. Obviously, keeping your list hygiene. CakeMail does all that in the background for you, helping you with your authentication. Another great reason to go with an email service provider like CakeMail. So, like I mentioned, you can brand all of the links within your email content as well, and you have a dedicated support team at your fingertips. So if you're not sure about content, or you're not sure about something, or maybe you think your authentication is broken, or maybe your open rate has gone down a little bit, wouldn't it be nice to send an email to support and get their feedback on it? And we've been doing this for a long time. We have a lot of good advice. There's also our knowledge base and our blog, which you will have access to. So we're doing a lot of things in the background to make sure that you're successful. That's our job ultimately, to increase your inbox rate, your return on investment. So going it alone, again, it's there's a lot of implications with that. Your reputation's on the line. You want to make sure that the email you're sending is actually getting to your recipients. So our job is to make sure that happens. So, feel free to reach out to us if you have any other questions with regard to your reputation or your delivery. Fabricio and I, our entire support team, are here to help you. So that's one of the best ways that we can help you.
Exactly. So yeah, don't hesitate to reach out to us, support@cakemail.com, and we'll be more than happy to answer any other questions you may have in regards to this content. And we invite you to also check our website, cakemail.com. We'll be having a lot more of different webinars on different subjects that I'm sure are going to be great for your strategies, for your knowledge. So make sure to join us then. So with that, we've reached the end. Thank you so much again, Kev. Thank you everyone for joining us today. It was really a pleasure to be here and present you this information.
Thanks, Fabricio. Excellent job. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. I hope you had a good time, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
All right, thanks. See you soon.